Okay, guys, very welcome back to the show. And I've got an extreme guest on the show today, Bay Ragni, that you might recognize as Chubby Dudley. How are you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Is this your first time on an Irish podcast?
It is. It is.
Okay.
I did one in England a couple weeks ago, but Ireland, yeah, my first time. I did Australia too, so I'm slowly bebopping around the world.
Yeah. And in terms of the business, like we're going to kick back to how it began for you, but like looking onto it now, are you totally out of the business now? Or are you kind of getting into this convention world over there, which is huge?
Yeah, you know what? It's truly like the scene from The Godfather. Just when you think you're out, they pull me back in, and and it all started with this YouTube channel that I'm doing, which we'll get into. But once I
Yeah.
started that, and then like 2 months ago, I got hit up by Sign Guy Dudley one night. It was like a Sunday night, and late, and I have like an eBay business, and I was sitting here doing my eBay business, and I get a text from Lou, and he said, "Hey, there's a guy doing ECW autograph trading cards. Would you be interested in doing a deal?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" So do the deal, get it worked out, and I start promoting. I got these cards for sale. And the next thing I know, like I'm selling cards. I'm getting hit up for Comic Cons. I'm getting hit up for appearances at wrestling shows here in Nashville. So it's like all of a sudden everything's falling back into place, and it's just the way I want to do it because I don't have any um, aspirations or intentions on getting back into the ring. So
Sure. But it's nice for you guys, I suppose, to meet up in all these different cities and maybe see people you haven't seen in years.
it's literally like family reunion. It literally is. It's always great to see you know guys from whether it's ECW or other shows or federations you've been a part of, and you never know um, who you're going to cross paths with. So even recently, I did a Comic Con last month, and my neighbor was Buff Bagwell, so we hit it off. So and I was the first time I ever met Marcus. So it was a very good conversation. Good dude. He seems to be on a really good path in life right now, thanks to
Sure
DDP.
is.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was very. You never know what's going to happen with these things.
When we were talking off air, actually, I was telling you about wrestlers flying off the handle, and Marcus kind of done that on my show one night. But
Really?
I found him a very good guy. He started going in on Hannibal from Hannibal TV over interviews that Hannibal done with him and done with his
Oh,
friends, where they were talking about maybe some of the controversies that surrounded him before he started kind of cleaning his life up again. He seems to be in a really good spot, actually.
he does.
I must reach out to him. I must reach out to him and get him on for a show again because it'd be totally different than the last one, just from what I've seen of him.
It's funny because and hopefully he doesn't see this or hear this. Um, because we exchanged numbers and I was going to have him as a guest on my show. And I wanted to tell him on my show. I was never a fan of Bagwell because you hear rumblings through the grapevine in the business, and I had always kind of heard a lot of negative stuff about him over the years. And
Sure.
I was when I heard he was going to be at the Comic Con, I was like, oh shit, like because it was going to be me, him, and Kevin Sullivan and Andrew Anderson. So, and I know Andrew for years, and I think it was the first time I met Kevin, but Kevin seemed like he knew me for a while, so he was super cool. But when I saw that Marcus was next to me, I was like, oh shit, okay. But he greeted me instantly, um, very open, and just as we were sitting there chilling out for the day, start conversing and talking about little things, and then I'm hearing his conversation with the fans, and I was asking him some things, and yeah, we hit it off, and then it was funny, like we were texting that night afterwards, and he sent me like a "fuck you, brother" message or something. He was like, "Oh shit, that was meant for somebody else." I'm like, "Oh fuck." I'm like, "What the hell did I do?"
Yeah, he was very professional, man. When I was talking to him, he even came on the stream because I don't think he's big up on this technology and stuff like that. So he came on the stream the night before just to make sure everything worked. And cool
Okay.
guy, in my opinion. But I
Yeah,
also
yeah.
like Hannibal. I also like Hannibal, and the two of them, they can sort their own shit out. I don't interfere in anyone else's fucking problems. I have enough of my
I
own.
I'll hear you. I'll drink to that. And hey, were you drinking a beer?
No, I wasn't, but it's in a beer glass. I'm just
Oh,
drinking.
all right.
It's an energy drink.
Oh,
See, it's
I was
very
getting
orange.
jealous.
It actually kind of looks like a cider, but it's not, unfortunately.
Damn.
But I am in Ireland, and I was drinking beer last night and the night before.
Very nice. Very
But
nice.
I got to work tomorrow, so I'm just going to take it easy now tonight. Look, well, about getting into the wrestling business, how did that come about for you? Like, what was, I assume, was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it just a
No.
turn that was taken somewhere? Yeah.
The funny thing was, going through the 80s, I was a teenager in the 80s, and the big main thing I really wanted to do was, be a rock star. I wanted to play guitar in a band, and in the era of heavy metal and hard rock and the hair bands and Sunset Strip and Motley Crue and all that stuff. I wanted to be one of those guys. I wanted to tease my hair up, and I wanted to fucking wear makeup and get all the girls and all that stuff. Well, I was doing the first couple steps. Like, I was teasing the hair up. I was trying to get the girls and just trying to live that rock star life. But I wasn't attempting to like really learn how to play guitar. So there was a little problem. And I had been a casual wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling around 10, 11 years old. So I was a casual fan. But then in the mid 80s with NWA, when that started airing in Philadelphia, I became a big wrestling fan. And
Yeah.
I was like hooked with the whole Four Horsemen and Magnum TA and Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors and things like that. And the way they entered a show each week was, we're out of time. And they had this big cliffhanger angle they're doing at the end of each show every week. And I was on the edge of my bed, like freaking out. And I would get like, being an Italian guy from South Philly, I would get like that. Like, I just watched Rocky 1 or 2 and get so freaking excited and pumped up. And I started saying to myself, damn, maybe I should like try to become a pro wrestler. But at that time, I really hadn't, there really wasn't like an easy way to get into the business around 85,
Yeah.
86. And I was still too young at that point. But I like had it in the back of my head, like, hey, maybe if I don't become a rock star, my backup plan would be a pro wrestler. Fast forward 5 years later, around 1990, I had just at that point the most serious band I had just broken up, and I was like kind of like on the rebound. Like, what do I do now? I don't want to start over. I could kind of see like a trend in the music business kind of shift a little, and I was like, I wonder about the wrestling. So I started looking into pro wrestling, and it turned out my brother-in-law at the time was working. His day job, he was working with a guy called the Rock and Rebel, which is a
Right.
controversial person. But he introduced me to him, and Rebel told me about the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance and hooked me up with the promoter Joe Goodhart. And I set up a tryout for myself and some friends of mine, and we all went up there and we tried out, and I made it, and I started training like a month later, September of 1990.
Wow.
Sold all my music
And,
equipment to pay for my down payment of wrestling school.
and what did wrestling school kind of, what was price of that back then?
It was $2,400, and I paid. I think I put $1,000 down, and it was
Mhm.
75 hours a week.
Okay.
And your training was 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday.
And was it as tough on the body as you thought it would be, or was it worse?
Initially, it was very tough because your body's just not used to, taking bumps and getting thrown around and the ropes and getting those rope burns and stuff like that. But after, a month of really hitting it, 4 nights a week, it doesn't, it gets pretty smooth. Um,
Hmm.
but the thing that I should have listened more is like, my teachers at that time, Larry Winters and Ron Shaw, my initial teachers, they were like, land straight on the back. Don't land off to the side, land straight on the back. You're going to thank me in the long run. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
and I remember walking to the locker room to get changed after training one night. I was like, yeah, fuck that. I'll land however I land. Like, I'll be reckless. And yeah, that was dumb. That was freaking dumb. I still, 33 years later, I freaking feel it, man.
Really? How's the body holding up?
Um, it was holding up better like a year and a half ago because I had lost a bunch of weight and I've gained probably about 50 pounds back. I had lost like 120 pounds, so I'm still ahead,
Okay.
but I need to drop that weight again because I really like I felt like I probably could have got back in the ring, but that was still I
Really?
had no intent. Yeah, I felt the best I felt in probably 30 something years.
So do you think if you drop that weight back, I know you said you have no plans to get back in the ring, but could you get that feeling again?
I don't think so because my heart's not really into getting back in the ring. It's really not.
Sure.
And it's a whole new world and style right now. And you know, at 53, I don't need to be getting in the ring. There's no reason for it.
Yeah. Talk to me about the contrast of being initially in, we'll say, Eastern Championship Wrestling, and then being in that incarnation of what ECW became and is famous for. What was it like being in the two of those, same company essentially, but two different places altogether?
Totally night and day. It was coming from the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, which had went out of business very abruptly, and I never even got a chance to debut. I was set to debut, and Joel Goodhart closed the doors like 3 weeks before my debut. I was fucking devastated. I mean, nobody knew he was going to do it. Totally pulled the plug, and it was just a shock to everybody. And instantly from the ashes, Todd Gordon, who was one of the backers, gave birth to Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
So it took me a few months before Todd gave me a tryout to even give me a look over before I got my shot. But instantly, Eastern Championship Wrestling was a different product from TWA. TWA was more Extreme Championship Wrestling. Eastern Championship
Mm.
Wrestling at first was kind of soft. And it kind of relates to the whole business aspect too. Like when I was initially taught in the business, you're taught to work smooth. Don't potato people. Don't stiff people. Don't lay it in. Just work very smooth, but make it look good. It's the way
Mm.
you're taught. Eastern Championship Wrestling becomes on TV. Uh, Things start changing, evolving. Boom. 4 years or three, whatever it is, 2 years later, Extreme Championship Wrestling is born. And at that point, the business now changed because now you go from being smooth and being light and working to make each other look good to now, like when I'm in a locker room and I'm having matches with people and I'm talking my matches over, I'm like, just fucking hit me. I don't care. Just potato me, stiff me, just fucking hit me. Just lay it the fuck in. I don't care. Like it's not going to bother me and that became the
Yeah.
mentality for not just me, but the wrestling business in the indies, not in WCW or WWF at the time. They looked
Yeah.
down on us. Like, what are you fucking lunatics doing? Like, don't do this.
Yeah.
And it truly changed the face of the whole business to where you had to now work that way and put your body on the line way more than what guys were doing, and you had to
Mm.
keep upping the ante every time because after people see it a few times, it's like, all right, we saw it. What can you do now? So it started with the chairs, and then it became the tables, and then there's fire, and then there's barbed wire, and then you know what I mean? It just,
Everything.
yeah, yep.
How did the idea come about then, putting you with the, when it was with Bubba? This was slightly before Devon was in, wasn't it?
So the chain of birth, so we'll say, the
Yeah.
first three was Big Dick Dudley, Dudley Dudley, and Little Snot Dudley. Little Snot like after 2 or 3 weeks, was in a bad car accident and was out. So I was friends with Steve Richards because we went through wrestling school together. So we were very close.
Okay.
And at that point, I was hearing the buzz about ECW. I was kind of bitter, and I had started my own promotion because I had gotten let go early on. And
Yeah.
I kept hearing the buzz, and then Richards called me. He's like, "Yo, you got to check out what's going on. Have you watched the show?" I'm like, I haven't watched. He's like, "Please watch it. I want you to see what's going on." So when he got brought back in as Raven's lackey, I started watching. I was like, "Holy shit! This is
Mhm.
this is fucking good. Like this is what it should be." And then I saw the Dudleys, and I'm saying to myself, "Holy shit! I look like the Dudleys. I should be a Dudley." And then Richards calls me. Richards calls me and goes, "Hey," he goes, I was thinking, he goes, I put a word in with Raven because Raven's the one that created the gimmick. He's like, I put a word in with Raven that you would be a great fit for a Dudley." I'm like, dude, I was thinking the same exact thing. He's like, all right, come this weekend, come to the shows. I'll introduce you to Paul at the hotel afterwards, and we'll see what he says. So we're back at the hotel afterwards, and I'm talking to Richards in the lobby of the hotel, and here comes Paul without even saying a word. He looks at me and goes, "Oh my god, another fucking Dudley." And Richards is like, "This is the guy I was telling you about." So Paul says, "Do you want to be a Dudley?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah." He goes, "What do you want to do for a gimmick?" And I always wanted to be like gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. I wanted like a beautiful Bay gimmick or something like that. So I said, "How about Studley Dudley?" He's like, "No, not going to happen." I'm like, I don't know. He's like, "Chubby Dudley." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Do you have a tie dye?" I said, "No." He goes, "Get a tie dye and bring food with you and come back next week." Okay. And that's how it was born. So the following week, it was me and Dances with Dudley. We were next. So we started next. And probably maybe a month or two later, I think Sign Guy was starting to be planted in the crowd. And then Bubba Ray came in. And then it was those two came in like right after us within a month.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you disappointed looking back on it that you like they kind of used you a lot as an extra in segments and stuff like that, and didn't really have a lot of, would say, matches on TV? I'm not sure if you guys were doing house shows
Furious.
back then. Yeah.
Furious. That's why I left. That was
Is
exactly why I left.
yeah. So like obviously when you were signed, then you were under the impression that you were going to be a wrestler on TV wrestling every week. Well, maybe not every week because there's so many
I
wrestlers as well.
thought, yeah, I totally just thought I was going to get a shot, a chance.
Yeah.
Even if I got a chance and they would have said, "Hey, Bay, look, I don't think you fit right now, but please, we want you to still be part of this, and maybe we can fit you in here and there." I would have been cool with that. But I never, I got, my chance was they needed somebody in an opening match for a tag match at one of the house shows. And it was against the Bad Crew. And it was me and El Puerto Ricano against Bad Crew. And they sent Sandman out to Canis at the end of the match before the match even finished. They just, did that. And Hack, who I knew him from my first day in wrestling too, from wrestling school. He said to me, he said, "Yo, Chubby," he said, "when I hit the ring, feed to me first. I'm going to hit you once and fucking powder and get out." He's like, "You don't belong there, and I'm going to beat the shit out of those guys." And that's what I did. I took my shot, rolled out, and I was like looking back, and I just heard the crack, 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 and and I was like, shit. But that was my only shot I was given because I mean they had it already set like with their plans with Bubba, and then Dances with Dudley was also a very good worker. Bubba was green, very green at the time when he came in, but Dances I felt was the best worker out of the bunch because at that point too, they let Dudley go because I think he was in Florida and it just was too much to keep flying him back and forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was never given the shot. And then things started to evolve with once Devon came in with that whole Bubba Ray Devon thing. So
Yeah,
the writing was all on the wall. And then it just got to the point where I was like kind of okay with it. Um, because I was I had all the TV time, the recognition. I'm in magazines. Out in my real life, if I'm walking through the mall, I'm getting stopped and asked for autographs. I'm like, I'm
crazy.
getting all the perks out of it. Um, Partying and living like a rock star after the shows between anything I wanted, whether it was sex, drugs, or rock and roll. It was all at my fingertips. So it was just I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna live it up and have a good time. And that's what I was doing. But then when they brought Spike in, and it was nothing against him personally, and the first night they gave him a match, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, that's kind of fucked up. Here comes this guy who's literally 100 pounds and he got a shot instantly. And I hung out for maybe about another month, and I was every weekend he's getting put out there with matches and shit. I was like, man, I'm done. Like I'm getting my head bashed in. I'm getting concussions, broken nose, this and that. Kind of wore off, and then I was getting into a relationship where I was like, all right, I guess it's time to settle down and be an adult, maybe get married and stuff like that. And that's what I did.
Did you ever have a conversation with Paul about your lack of matches or anything like that?
Nope.
No point.
I because I just knew that there was not a spot for me, because there was just
Yeah,
at that point you saw things were really starting to elevate with Bubba and Devon, and their feud was starting to take off, and I just knew there was not going to be a spot for me. I knew I was destined to
yeah,
be the sideshow, which
yeah,
I could have rode out and had some fun with it, but I still um they wouldn't have, like, when they started going full time and travel and stuff like that. They wouldn't have paid for me to be on the road or any of that. Yeah, there wouldn't have been a need for it.
yeah. What's the funniest thing you've ever seen backstage at an ECW show?
Ooh, ooh, that's a good one.
We can come back to that question if you want.
Probably nothing like overly, probably nothing overly funny, except for like some of the watching like a lot of the promos get done. That was some funny stuff, really funny stuff to see, like the promos. A lot of times we would film them back, backstage or throughout the arena after the arena shows or back at the hotel. Watching those, I mean, that was like watching. Some was just like literally watching wrestling history and magic happen, and some was like watching a comedy show where it was just like
Yeah.
hysterical. So those were probably the funniest spots, watching some of those promos be done.
Do you have any memories of working with guys like, well, that were there, even maybe New Jack? Did you meet him when you were in ECW that time?
Of course, uh,
Yeah.
I love the New Jack. New Jack, deep down was a great fucking guy. He really was. He was one of those guys that you want to have on your side. You don't want to piss off,
Sure.
and you want to truly gain his respect. Because if you do those things, then then you'll have like a friend for life. And thankfully, I did. Due to an incident that happened back at the hotel one night, I gained his respect, and because I had his back in a situation, and we could have went 10 years without seeing each other. And as soon as he would see me, he would always hand out with a big hug. And
Yeah.
it's still mind blowing to believe, like, he's gone. It really is.
Yeah. I was actually talking with him. I was going to have him on the show, and the last message that he sent to me was a few months before he died was, Sure, man, I'll do the show. I love my fans. That's the last thing that he said to me. And
Mm,
I thought that really hit home with me when I'm talking to
yeah,
people that know him, you know?
he was
So,
a good dude. He was a fun guy. Um, Absolutely batshit crazy. Especially
sure.
in those early days. As he got older, from what I can tell, he seemed, naturally to level out some. But I mean, he had, as people saw on the show, he had a crazy life, crazy upbringing, and all. And you know,
Yeah.
but he had it. He was one of those guys that he had it. He had that
He
charisma,
was
that
so
star
believable.
quality. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the Sandman? What's he like?
It's funny as I'm doing this reaction channel, watching the old Sandman matches when he was doing the
Yeah.
surfer gimmick, and I mean, I knew, like I said, I knew him from day one in the wrestling business, and he admitted to me early on in wrestling school, and he's 10 years older than me. Um, he started wrestling school at 29 years old, which was like kind of
Wow.
mind blowing. Yeah, he said to me one night, he's like, the difference with me is I'm an asshole. And I know I'm an asshole, and I'll tell you I'm an asshole. And I was just like, that's fucked up, dude. That's fucked up. But he's another guy. He's a good dude, very good dude. Last time I saw him was like 5 years ago. I ran into him in
Is
a.
he is he still wrestling?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. Maybe he is. Maybe he's doing some
Mhm.
matches here and there. But I don't think he's drinking anymore. That I don't.
Okay.
I think I heard he's not drinking anymore, which is a fucking shock and you know surprise because that was, I mean, what you saw was, that was him. That was legit. When he
Yeah.
changed that gimmick to be what it was, that was a total shoot, and that was just real life hack.
Yeah. Enter Sandman as well. Like what a fucking entrance theme to come out to.
Come on, come on.
Yeah.
I still, like, I have chills even just thinking about it. Like, getting even to watch those entrances now, like on YouTube, where you can actually hear the Enter Sandman music, is there might not be a better entrance in wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I was watching a podcast with you on another show recently, and you were saying that when you ultimately left ECW, you took the character with you on the road to the independents, and it caused you some trouble. Do you want to tell people about that? Pretty interesting.
It-
The guy that didn't want to use for matches, then suddenly he's performing as himself, and then it's a problem.
yeah. So the word got out that I had left ECW, and then my phone started ringing. People, and naturally, and it happened to, all the guys that were at ECW, their phone starts ringing, and people want to start booking them, and it happened to me.
Yep.
And I started taking bookings, and I guess after a month or so of working some shots as Chubby Dudley in Jersey and Philly, um, I was working during the day at a local pizza shop in where I grew up in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. And the phone rings one day, and I pick it up. I'm like, "Hey, DNC Pizza." And I hear, "Yeah, is this Bay?" I'm like, "Yeah, who's this?" Taz. I'm like, Taz. I'm like, "What? What's up?" And he's like, "We need to have a talk." I said, "Okay." He's like, "Are you doing our gimmick on the Indies?" I said, "What do you mean our gimmick?" He's like, "That's our gimmick. We own the gimmick. You can't do it." I said, "Well, that's kind of fucked up." I said, "All right, you want to talk?" I'm like, "Can we just please talk?" I said, "I would love to talk." I said, "Taz, all I wanted was a shot. It's all I wanted." I said, "I was never given a shot." I said, I've been there for a year and a half. Everything you guys have thrown at me, I've taken. Everything you hit me with, I've taken. And I haven't complained once. Not once. I'm thankful and grateful, but I just wanted a shot." He said, "Yeah, well, you're out. You're gone. You left. You can't do the gimmick anymore on the indies. If I find out you're doing it, I'm going to come to a show and I'm going to stretch your ass." I was like,
Jesus.
okay. I was like, all right. So I stopped doing the gimmick.
That's very strange, isn't it?
The funny thing is, it's strange. And at first, I was kind of I was taken back. I'm like, that's kind of fucked up,
You,
but like I get
you
it
rang your
because
job. You
yeah,
rang your job to say that. That is fucking madness.
but as a promoter too at the time, I get it because I would have fucking done the same thing for a gimmick that I created. So I totally get it, and that was 96, so 27 years ago. I have not spoken to Taz since, and one of these days we're
You're
going
gonna
to
cross paths, man.
we're going to cross paths at a convention, and I just want to like put my hand out and shake his hand and laugh about it and see if he even remembers it because it's fucking hysterical. It's really
It's
a fucking
hilarious.
hysteric. Yeah, it's fucking hysterical. Like you know, yeah,
I don't think he'll even remember Matt.
probably
He
not.
probably will, I suppose, when you bring it up. But it's hilarious. So he obviously had a lot of power in
Oh
ECW then
yeah.
as well around that. Yeah,
I mean, you figure it was it was kind of like if Paulie was the Godfather, um, Taz and Dreamer were like the Godfather's I guess sergeants you could say the seconds in command.
right,
Yeah.
right. What do you miss most about the business now that you're out of it?
Ooh. Actually, a lot. I miss from a creative standpoint. I really miss booking shows and booking matches and stuff like that. I had a lot. I ended up falling in love with that part of the business more than actually being a wrestler.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
truly miss that. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the brotherhood. Um, I miss the fans. I made a
yeah.
lot of. I made probably even more friends with the fans of ECW that I'm still in touch with over more of the guys from the business. So
Yeah, yeah. Some people, man, they're just ECW diehards, and I have to just ask this, and we won't dwell on it too long. What did you think of that ECW that Vince put out when he bought the company, or did you see any of it?
well, that's the thing too. Like when I left the business for
Yeah,
the big part in 2002, I I shut it off, and I
right.
really from 21 years ago, I've barely watched any modern day wrestling. I don't know probably 75% of the workers out there now. Um, because I'm the type when I start watching it, like the wrestling business guy in me starts going fucking nuts, and it's like the armchair quarterback. Well, why aren't they doing this? Or why are they doing this? Makes absolutely zero sense, and the booking is atrocious, and you can see this is where the script writers are here writing shit, and it's not a true wrestling mind, and so
Yeah,
it's safer for me and my life to just not watch it. But
yeah,
I mean, from what I heard it was just you can't, you cannot, and many people have tried it, tried to redo ECW, whether it was Vince with all the money in the fucking world, or whether it was Joe Schlub promoter in Philadelphia, whether it was myself, because I absolutely tried to pick up the pieces. Um, Nobody will ever recreate ECW and the magic that happened from 1995, especially to 1998. Never happened.
mhm.
A
I
big
agree with
part of
that.
that, a big part of that is that building. That building is where the magic was.
Mhm. If we look at modern day, I know like you haven't been watching, we'll say modern wrestling, but on your YouTube channel now, so you've got two YouTube channels, haven't you?
I
You've
got
got
like
one for the
5.
interviews. So
I
you're gonna have to send them all to me then. But the two I was focused on was the interview one and the wrestling one, where you're going back and watching some of the old stuff that you were involved in. So do you want to tell people about those channels and the
so
other 100?
so the quick easy one is my interview channel. I used to do a interview podcast, radio podcast called Totally Driven Radio, which I did for 8 years, and I would put my interviews up on YouTube. And then during the whole pandemic thing, we have now StreamYard and Zoom and stuff like that. So I started doing interviews like these, and I rebranded, and now it's the Bay Ragni show, and I interview like 75% music stars, celebrities, actors, TV, occasionally some wrestling. So that's that channel. And back around Thanksgiving, a friend of mine who became a friend because I interviewed him. He a musician who is a huge ECW fan, and his name is Ray Belcher, and he used to play bass in the band for Wednesday 13, and he has his own. I don't even know if they're still going. I think they're on hold right now. But he had like a country rock band called Early Ray, and he does some solo stuff. Anyway, he texted me late one night. He's like, "Yo, are you up?" It was like midnight. I'm like, "Yeah, wow, what's up? You all right?" He's like, "Dude, I got to talk to you." And he calls me. He's like, "Yo," he goes, "I got home from an acoustic gig I was doing, and I was laying in bed, and I've been watching ECW for like 4 hours." He goes, "I can't turn it off. I'm just completely sucked in." And I just started thinking to myself, wow, I wonder what Bay would say about this. I wonder what Bay knows about this. I wonder what Bay would his thoughts on this were. He's like, then I was thinking, Bay should do a reaction channel to ECW. And I was like, oh my God, dude, that's fucking brilliant. Like, that might be the greatest idea ever. So I started putting it all together, and I launched it 2 weeks later. And so what I'm doing is I'm literally going through ECW television history, match by match, in order, and watching the history of ECW. And I am telling my thoughts on the match. I'm telling my thoughts on the booking, telling my thoughts on the quality of the show, telling my thoughts on any behind the scenes things I know, just letting it all out. So I'm up to, I don't know, like 25th or something episode of my own, but I'm actually only on, I think, the 6th episode of ECW TV. So I have a long way to go. And I launch a new episode every 3 days. So the next one drops tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow at noon Eastern. Or, yeah,
So,
1 Eastern.
So are you going to go all the way up? Like, where do you draw the line?
All
Are
the
you gonna
fucking
go
way.
into Vince's Are you going to go into Vince's ECW?
At some point, yeah, I'm going to go all the fucking way. Fuck it.
Oh, that's going to be golden when you get there.
Because, yeah, I mean, eventually I'll get to the end of the road, and then what will I watch and what will I do? But it's going to be it's
a
fun
long road.
because it's a very long road. But the crazy thing is, I'm getting, like, in the early part of Eastern Championship Wrestling, when we were let go, when I was born of the Hell Riders, I got angry and bitter, and I stopped watching the product. So I didn't watch the product for a year and a half before I was brought back as a Dudley. And then I watched it again. And then when I left as a Dudley, again, I stopped watching it. And then I started tuning back in after they did the first pay-per-view. I watched the pay-per-view live when it happened, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff I never truly saw. So I'm at that point now where it's all new to me. So it's going to be an interesting ride.
And what I'll do, I'll put the links of your YouTube channels. You'll have to send them all to me underneath this video.
Awesome.
And man, absolute pleasure to catch up with you today. Thanks
so
much.
You too, man. You too. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
We will catch up again.
The channel is called React and Chill with Chubby Dudley. So you know.
Okay. Perfect, man.